Hello, and welcome to OPSAWG After Dark. We really appreciate you sticking with us today. We know it's been a long day, and thank you to coming to the IETF 124 instance of Ops Area Working Group. Benoit and I'm Joe. We will be your hosts, and let's get going. Kent did a really good kickoff this morning in this room on NetConf about the Note Well. I'm sure you've seen it a couple of times since then. This is actually a new Note Well, but most of the same things apply in that your contributions at the mic here at the IETF are subject to IETF policy and this Note Well, which you agreed to when you registered for the conference. The main things out of this are you are expected to disclose any intellectual property rights that you may know about. And we, to note very well, we are a group that wants to treat each other with respect. So keep it about the technology, keep it about how we make things better and how we make the internet better, and the ad hominems and things of that nature, keep that away. There are means with our Ombuds team if you need to raise an issue, but we are hoping that everyone can act with decorum and respect for each other and keep this really about making the internet better. If you are not already, please open up your laptops or your phones, your pads, and get on the Meet Echo tool. If you are here in the room, we recommend you use the light version of Meet Echo so that you don't have your audio causing feedback, so Meet Echo Lite. But the reason we have everyone do this is so the people joining us from remote, and we have a few, are in the same category in terms of participation as those of you here in the room. That is, in order to enter the queue, to talk at the mic, to ask a question, to comment, please raise your virtual hand in the Meet Echo tool, either the light version, you just click that little hand icon, or you click the hand icon at the bottom of the screen in the big version, and you will be put in the queue in order, and that's how we'll handle things. The agenda for this meeting has been posted. Hopefully you had a chance to review it and review the drafts and hopefully review the slides that people are going to talk about. So you come prepared with questions. We've already talked a little bit about Meet Echo, and if there's any technical issues, well, technically I work in the Network Operations Center here, so I'm on that hook. So if you have any problems, just let me know and I'll let other people know. I'm Joe Clark, as I said. Benoit, as always, is my distinguished co-host, and we have a new secretary, Chung Feng, up in the front row there. He's been helping us greatly. Yes, thank you. That's awesome. Yeah. He's been helping us greatly in preparing for this meeting and collecting your slides and collecting the proposals, doing a few reviews, so we appreciate that. He's also going to help with minutes, but he can't do everything. So I posted in the chat, and you can see the link there on the slides. I've pre-populated the minutes with our agenda. If you're not speaking and you wouldn't mind, because I didn't see Rob Wilton walk in. He's usually one good for some minutes. Please join that link and help document things, especially if you speak. If afterwards you sit down and you summarize what you said, that would be fantastic. We do have all the materials up, the slides. If you're in Meet Echo, especially in the full tool, you'll see the chat room, and that's the full link to the Meet Echo thing there. Now let's get into the fun stuff. We were a very prolific working group between Madrid and here. We had several RFCs published, so congratulations authors and contributors if you're in the room. You can see them there, export of UDP options, and a slew of attachment circuit related things. I see a big smile on Med's face. Thank you everyone for participating. We now have RFC numbers to be for TACACS TLS. I think that represents a great achievement for several people in this working group. And that will be shortly followed by the TACACS Yang module. So an instance of where the new protocol and the way of managing that protocol come out almost simultaneously. We also have the IPFix on-path telemetry in the RFC editor queue. As Kent pointed out this morning, they are a little bit backlogged, but they're making their way through it. And we really appreciate the responsiveness of the authors in keeping up with IANA feedback, IESG feedback, RFC editor feedback. With the IESG, we have the prefix lengths document, which has also been getting some bidirectional feedback, which is good. We have PCAP link type. We'll talk about that briefly on the next slide. If MCR joined us in the room, he may give us an overall short update on PCAP. And the collected data manifest has been going back through AD review with Mahesh, and Jean has been responsive there. In working group last call, we have the document Benoit has really been spearheading from a Shepherd standpoint, which is OAM characterization. And man, the contribution, the level of discussion, it's been thorough. Let's say that. So that's a good thing. And I think IPFix GTPU just closed the last call, so that we expect to be seeing going forward. We will have a few documents presented in this meeting, but there will be a few that aren't. I'll talk about a few or a couple, and then Benoit will talk about a couple. With discard model, Benoit and I reviewed it. The authors have maybe a few changes to make. I've also put in for directorate reviews, so we hope to get that one into last call shortly. PCAP, I put out a consensus call today for the what we want to do about the registry for PCAP link types. The proposal is we make this an expert review. If anyone wants to comment on that, we want to get to a consensus because that is holding up the rest of the PCAP work. There is something that a couple of changes that the authors have to make to the historic PCAP, and then that one can move forward. And when that does, we can get the PCAP no longer next generation, but now generic, the NG draft moving forward as well. So please check your email and respond. As a contributor, I think expert review makes sense based on my read and what the authors want to do there. The other one I'll talk about is UCL ACL. Chongfeng is the shepherd there. We've gotten a few responses from authors. I don't think there's any known implementations. There's a few touch-ups I'd like to see in the write-up, and then that will move forward to the IESG. Benoit, do you want to talk about any of the others?
On the one not presenting, you mentioned it, the OAM characterization. I'm sorry I'm late. I need to review. I need a couple of hours of quietness to review all the arguments and potentially close the last call there. The outlet marking, Giuseppe mentioned that basically it's done, so it's up to us to review this. Us being us in the working group, right? So far we see reviews from Joe, from myself, and thanks to our new secretary as well, some reviews. But you know the way it works, we need more reviews in order to progress the document. And I think that's it on my side. Yes. Oh, and the last one, this is an IPFix one. And I reviewed that in the past. It's like many of those IPFix information element related draft. They're not controversial. I need to review it, and I think it's going to progress.
So that brings us to our presenting agenda. You can see here, hopefully, again, people's had a chance to review what's going to be discussed. I won't read them all. We have a fairly tight agenda. If everyone keeps to their time, we should have 5 minutes for open mic at the end. We'll see how that goes. Any bashing before we get into our presenters? Not seeing anyone coming to the queue. That means number 1, Cozy and Diego. Yang Provenance. There it is.
Sorry about that. Okay, so well, this is an update of what we have been doing with the draft on cozy signatures for provenance. Basically, what we have focused in this period since we met in Madrid till now, and taking into account that at least in Europe, summer breaks are extremely long, and so that translates into 2 months more or less of effective work. That's where we have tried to mature the JAN definition, make it better aligned with procedures, trying to clarify everything, and work precisely on that the reference implementation would work or would work better with JAN push, and would be better integrated with some of the aspects that we were discussing a while ago, talking about the MMOP and the message broker and everything that has to do with this. Main changes: we have refined the JAN modules, has been working in making them well-formed and healthy, in the sense that we hope that they will resist scrutiny by the JAN doctors. And we have focused very much on how the first enclosing method, the original one, if you remember, we're talking about 4 different ways. I mean, what the draft specifies very, very clearly, I believe, is how is the process to generate and verify the signature. And then there are 4 mechanisms for adding this signature to the JAN fragment that you has signed and wanted to be verifiable. So the idea is that these 4 methods, one is about having an additional leaf element. The second one is about using JAN push notifications. The third one is about adding metadata to a JAN instance file, and the fourth one is to use annotation as a general metadata associated with JAN. The first one was not, apparently was not clearly described. We tried to clarify it in the previous version, but we discovered that the way in which we were proposing making the augmentation, in case that there was an existing module, was not exactly clean. So we have been working on that, and we believe that now properly describes how this can be done for an existing module. For sure, for a module that is new, you can define just define a leaf method and add a leaf element and add the signature. In other cases, it's about how this can be the augmentation can be made, and so we have updated examples. All these, and this is something that since the beginning, since we started with the initial proof of concept that this could be done, has been aligned with the reference implementation, and we have made the same way that we had to clarify the mechanisms for the augmentation and for building adding this new leaf element. The idea is that we have done the same with the reference implementation, and now what we have managed is that how this element is identified is totally compliant with the schema. So it's based on the schema, it retrieves the schema, it localizes which is the element that have the provenance signature type that is defined and processes it. So it's totally schema driven, and it's totally, that makes it usable, we believe, in any JAN processing pipeline. And well, the curious thing for this is that, well, and we are adding module name and namespaces, we are making it totally aligned with the JAN best practices, and that makes it usable we believe, in any JAN processing pipeline. We have been working, demonstrating that this can be applied precisely to the use of JAN push in the case of the message brokers. The curious thing is that if you think about it, what we are proposing for two of the other enclosing methods, for JAN push and for instance metadata, is an augmentation. So basically, now what we have is the first enclosing method defines how the two others can be applied. We were discussing whether that implies that we should forget and talk about only two, one for the augmentation, the other one for the annotation. But I personally believe that it's better, or it should be clear, because, well, if you're going to use JAN push, forget about everything, because we have already done the work, and you have it there, so you can use it. So that we have left these two methods as well. At the hackathon, we were showing, as I said, we were as a demonstration of how the augmentation work and how this full schema-driven mechanism was implemented. What we did is demonstrated the integration with the message broker approach. And in fact, we were using the implementation that the people working on the Kafka message broker have done. And what this has been added is all the process on the top that is in red in the diagram. That implies we're already in Madrid. We're showing how we could consume messages for a particular topic, sign them, inject them back in a different topic related to signed messages, and how those signed messages could be consumed by a verifier and then be classified as verified or not. What we have added right now is that the producer is the producer of the signet, or the signet methods, the element that is signing, the module that is signing this, is accessing the schema registry, where we have included the augmented modules that we're going to use. So the whole thing is, as I said, we have demonstrated and we were showing this these past days. And if you are interested, I can show you how the whole thing works. It's totally schema-driven signature processing. And we're keeping the two flavors. I mean, the one that is using the message broker, the one that is using the microservices. So, as I said, it's something that can be integrated in any Yang processing pipeline. What comes next after this? Well, we believe there is a time for a deep, total scrutiny by Yang doctors and a security review, since we're talking about signatures, etc. Frankly, I'm not totally sure if you have to request it. We have to request it. Okay, so please, go for it. And let's see. We should improve the trust model, and this is something that I was discussing with Per on this, and he was asking me yesterday about it. We were focused on the Yang, but these multiple signatures would be one of the targets for the coming weeks. We had to address CBOR. We committed to have XML, JSON, and CBOR. CBOR is the next step. And then we're talking about how we can align this with other proposals. We have been talking in the green group about this, the possibility of using these provenance signatures, etc. So the idea is to keep exploring potential application scenarios. And for sure, at the same time, the plan is to evolve the draft and the reference implementation at the same pace. And in fact, in this past time, we have used much more the reference implementation and then reflect the results in the draft and the other way around. And that's all, I guess. Yes, that's all.
Hi, Diego, thanks. I've lightly read the document, but I have a few comments or things that weren't clear to me, so I've got a couple of questions to ask. So one, in the Yang push message, where you've got the provenance field leaf, that's before the any data, and that would be rather than after.
Yeah.
But that means that for us, for example, we can't stream that because we'd have to get all the data first, run the provenance, check on it, and then encode it. Whereas if the provenance field was after, we'd be able to stream it through, I think.
What we did is that we followed the convention that discussing with people that were implementing the message program, etc. They told us that it should be just before the data. Taking into account that we are not doing the signature as the data flows, that we wait till all data is ready, we sign it and we add the signature. That would be immaterial in that sense, because you have to purposes the whole process. You have to, for example, canonicalize the input. You cannot sign on the fly. So it's in that sense, it would not imply any enhancement.
I think it would stop us as a producer being able to do this, though, because I don't think we'd want to force it to be where we have to cache the data first. Because
yeah.
So and then the other question in terms of canonicalization, you are canonicalizing it based on whether it's JSON or XML, or it's sort of tied to the encoding, rather than just having an abstract canonicalization of Yang instance data.
Because the point is that what you sign is the document. and what you're saying is what you are sending on the wire or what you are storing on the file. So even a change in a couple of carriage return or something like that, change totally the signature.
Okay.
So,
but then my last question is then, why not just canonicalize, or why not just sign the byte stream?
precisely because the byte stream, well, if it is the byte stream as before being directly sent, that's something that we could consider as some kind of optimization. That's something that we could consider.
So
but
just some questions.
I'm not totally sure that would be applicable. Anyway, we have started to talk with some people that are using what they call semantic canonicalization and exploring what that means. But I fear that I have seen some examples, and I don't know if that would suit COSI. So this is something that, it's not that everything is solved, but this is something that optimizing that point is probably one of the things that we will consider once we have this settled.
Real quick, we're not, so this is a working group document, but these are great things to bring on lists. We don't get enough reviews on the list, so these kind of comments.
So please, Rob, you have.
So thanks a lot. So Thomas, just following up on the conversation we had at NetConf, Reshad was pointing out, we had like a discussion on when we did the notification envelope, we got feedback from the young doctors that we had a sentence that basically the metadata should come at the end of the header. And we got feedback that basically there is no way in Yang where you can define how data is being serialized in which order. And therefore, in looking now in your document, I see also the provenance leaf is inserted before the contents leaf. So I think you have to remove that sentence as well as we did on the notification side, because Yang doesn't allow you the order of how it's being serialized. So you have the same.
Anna, who's making the implementation, basically has been talking with Alex and some others in the team about this, about these issues. Yeah, we are aware of that, and this is something that we keep looking. Yeah. But thank you. That's a good warning. Anyway, thank you.
And quickly, no need to answer now, right? But just you have 4 mechanisms,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yang elements, there are Yang pushes on the side, so you've got Yang instance data and annotation. What I'm missing is like, if I try to apply it, for example, in green, is like, what should I do? And then does it mean that it's going to be always dependent on what you want to do? So somehow I kind of hesitant to say, but we want like the operational data on how you're going to use that and in which priority if you can, because being too flexible is not always like a good one.
No, just a reflection, as if I can go back here, this one. We have found that, in fact, actually we have 2 methods. Is either you augment or you use an annotation. So this is something that we have to discuss, and probably we will change the structure to say you have 2 methods. You use an annotation as metadata, or you put this inside the Yang. The Yang is an annotation, and these are 2 examples if you want to use it for Yang push or instance metadata. So that would be different because the message would be there are only 2 methods basically.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scheduled OAM, I believe, is our next draft.
Okay, so on behalf of the author, I present this topic, Yang data model for network diagnosis uses scheduled sequence of OAM test. So actually, the latest version is 0.3. In Madrid, actually, we try to, we didn't make a presentation actually, but we summarized 8 issues. So since Madrid, we try to resolve these 8 issues that will be filed in the GitHub. So you can follow the link and summarize the change we made. And first is try to fix the Pinyin compilation issues. Second is add schema on the support. So This include, for example, introduce a scale mount capability to enable reuse existing OM young model without direct import. So I will introduce this in detail. And also we add an example to illustrate the scale mount usage, and also update the young tree diagram to include the scale mount representation. And in addition, we add a section based on young data model guidance, and also align with OM characterization guidelines, and also some other changes. We in appendix we add the young data model template, data configuration template example, and for all the other changes are editorial. And first, let's take a look at, in the previous version, one of the open issues about how we support the scale mount. So we explore two options. One is we can support, one test method in each unitary test. Second option, you will see we can specify multiple test methods in each unitary test using case choice. For each test method will be a case of the test type of choice. So this is a young data model code for both option. We can see, so for the option B, you need to enumerate all the test method, which is not desirable. So compare this option A and B. Actually, we see option A is more desirable. So current version actually implement this option A. And so follow-up question: do we still need to support this import? For example, import OM model from several OM young model developed by Lime working group, and which has already published as OPSAWG. And but based on our analysis, there's some limitation. For example, you can use adopt a use statement to incorporate the defined grouping into the data model, but the only grouping identity type definition can be imported. But for RPC operation and notification cannot be imported. So we see this is not desirable, so we abandon to use this import. So totally remove this import OM model from the young data model code. So follow-up is since we support scale mount, is any other alternative solution? So we see actually we have a young configure template which actually driven by the BBF requirements. Actually, currently there's an individual chapter, and the purpose is really reduce redundant definition of identical configuration data in the data store. So we explore how we can use this. So we use this generic template to build the OM test template. So you can see in the left side, actually, we give the example, and and we apply this OM test template to the OM unitary test configuration. And this is just show example. It can also apply to OM sequence test configuration as well. And but we think we can support this young template, but it doesn't mean we replace scale mount. So it's complementary. So we add this young template example in the appendix. Still we keep using the scale mount. So yeah, I think we on the mailing we actually solicited comments on the scale mount usage and template usage, and we haven't get feedback. And so we hope actually can also in addition, we try to align with OM characterization guideline. I think we also need some feedback and review from the OM characterization guideline author. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Any comments?
I didn't see
Joe.
anyone come up. So I have a couple of comments as chair first. I think you're getting to that on your second bullet point. We do need more feedback on the list. And I'll take my own advice because I do have some actual contributor comments too. So there's that. Actually, I guess that was my only chair comment, is making sure we get more of the feedback. As a contributor, I read this latest, I think the schema mount that you put in there works. There's some issues that I didn't get, and I'll comment on list. Like you have a TWAMP identity defined, but you don't, in your example, you call it TWAMP test, and I don't know why you would define the identity if you're using schema mount. Maybe do you need it? That was missing. The other thing, I think you under-specify your error conditions. You talk a lot about errors in there, but you don't really, you only have one error type, and it's enum. So I think maybe you would want to have your state machine be identities, or give something that gives you more context as to why the error occurred. Is it resource contention or something like that? But in general, I think the schema mount approach seemed to work for me.
Great. Thanks for your comments. Yeah. So we will clarify in the next version about your suggestion. Yeah, that's good feedback.
Okay, please comment on this. This is a working group document, and we'd like to see some more action or more interest. See what the working group thinks about it.
Leo.
Export of path segment identifier information and IP fix. Yeah, Liu. I know you.
Hi.
I know we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. So I showed. So you show the slides for me, or
Real quick, I will give you slide control just a wee bit softer. Adrian is holding his ears just a little bit softer. Thanks.
okay. Hi, I'm Liu from CT, and this presentation is about the export of path segment identifier information in IPFix. Actually, I made the mistake here. It's already in a working group document. So here are the updates since last IETF. The draft has been adopted by the working group, and many thanks to Chongfen and Thomas for their helpful review and comments. And besides SRv6 PSID, IPFix for SIMS PSID is also covered in this version, and a PSID use cases section has been added on how PSID benefits SR IPFix follow visibility, and the operational considerations section has also been refined as suggested. So here's a brief recap. So there are two information elements defined in this document. One is for SRv6 PSID. So it has been introduced several times. So it's a 122-bit IPv6 address that represents an SRv6 PSID. And the second is the newly added information element for SRMPLS PSID. So it is an 3-opt field including the label EXP and S field from the label stack entry that carries an SRMPLS PSID. Yeah, that's all we request review and comments, and we'll share the updates with Spring on Tuesday, since the SIMPS has been also added. That's all. Thank you.
Any feedback on this one? One quick one on my side. So the title is Export of Path Segment IFIR. Can you add like a little bit of segment routing in there just to make sure? For example, the previous RFC that was done on exporting IP information elements for SRv6 was clearly labeling SRv6 here. you know, if you do look up on past segment identifier, maybe it doesn't mean much to people. A detail, but
Okay, thank you for suggesting. I updated.
otherwise, I quickly browse the document and I think it improved a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Yo.
I believe the next one is also.
Okay. So export of encapsulation layer information in IPFix.
Yeah, I try to be soft. Okay.
You sound great.
And this is a new draft. It is about export of encapsulation layer information in IPFix. I didn't see. Okay. So here's some background information. In our network, packets with multi-layer network encapsulation become more and more common. Typical scenarios include IP in IP, especially IP in IPv6, and even IP in IP in IP. So here's an example as shown in the figure. C1 sends an IPv6 packet to C2. So we have IPv6 header 1. And when the traffic arrives at P1, which is the header of a SRv6 tunnel or IPv6 tunnel. I use SRv6 tunnel in this example. So there's a seed list 1 in P1. So P1 as a header will encapsulate the packet with a second IPv6 header and SRH, and including the seed list. So in the seed list, there is a binding seed T, which is a binding seed on node T. So when the traffic arrives at node T, seed T will encapsulate the packet with a third IPv6 header and the second SRH header with a seed list 2 in it. So when the traffic leaves seed T, leaves node T, there will be 3 IPv6 headers on the packet. So when we want to monitor the traffic flow with multiple layer encapsulations, a typical use case is to ask which tunnel are the packets steering to, and what are the details of the inner frame. So when monitoring a traffic flow with multiple layer encapsulations, the potential collection requirements include the following. Requirement A, collecting the same fields from both the outer and inner headers. And requirement B, collecting only the fields from the inner packet header. And requirement C, only collecting the fields from the outer packet header. And requirement D, collecting different fields from the outer header and inner header. For example, you may want to collect the destination address of the outer IPv6 and the source address of the inner IPv6 at the same time. So there are some gaps, although for requirement A, it now can already be fulfilled as in IFC 3011. So as specified in this IFC, if the same element appears multiple times in an IPFix template, it should be processed in order. For example, if you have 2 source address information elements in the IPFix template, then the first information element should be the SA of the outer header, while the second should be the SA of the inner header. So requirement A, there's no problem. However, for requirement B, C, and D, so when receiving an IPFix message with a certain information element, for example, source IPv6 address, if it is a packet with multiple IPv6 encapsulations, the collector is not able to tell which encapsulation layer this information element belongs to. So the solution proposed in this document is to define some information elements for encapsulation layer invocation. For example, the first is the encapsulation layer top. It is a 16-bit identifier with a fixed value. So it indicates that the information elements following immediately after the encap layer top till the next encapsulation layer element. For example, encap layer 2 as below, belong to the outermost network encapsulation layer. And if there's not any other encapsulation layer information elements exist in the template, it means that all the information elements following the encap layer top belongs to the outermost network encapsulation layer. And similar definitions, there are similar definitions for encap layer 2. So it's also a fixed length, a fixed value identifier. So the information elements following it will belong to the second network encapsulation layer. And there's a third encapsulation layer 3 information element. So here we provide an example. So in the figure, it's a IPFix template. From the top to bottom, we have encap layer top and the destination address encap layer 2 and source IPv6 address. So it indicates that the destination IPv6 address between the encap layer top and the encap layer 2 belongs to the outer IPv6 header. And the source IPv6 address following the encap layer 2 belong to the inner IPv6 header. And here are some operational considerations. So to generate flow records with encapsulation with information elements for encapsulation layer included, the metering process should recognize the encapsulation layer of the corresponding fields in the packet. It's more an implementation specific thing. And the second is each encapsulation layer information element shall not appear more than once in a template. And the third is, of course, there are some information elements that are not related with header fields. So whether they are covered by the scope of the encapsulation layer information element, they should be processed following the existing specification. And that's all. And we welcome feedback, comments, and cooperation. So are you facing a similar problem? Or maybe you have already solved it, and we are open to discuss. That's all. Thank you.
Liu Yao, I have one question. Actually, it's your first question. We have no such problem in our network, although SRVs hasn't been deployed. So can you give me a use case of multi-layer encapsulation?
So let me go back to the slides. So yeah, in this figure, so you can see when the packets leave P1, you will have two IPv6 headers in it. So a collector may want to know, or a network monitor want to know. So what's the details? It may want only to know what's the details of the inner frame. So maybe so in this case, when you may have a flow record with only one source address and one destination address in it, but when the collector receives the IPFix record, it is unable to tell is this source address belongs to the outer IPv6 header or the inner IPv6 header.
Sorry, my question is that multi-layer encapsulation has not been deployed in our network. So that's my question. We could discuss this offline. At me list.
Yeah,
okay.
I think in some network it has already been defined, because especially with the introduction of IPv6, if you are sending, if your CE is already sending IPv6 packet, Then with another layer of SRv6 encapsulation, at least you have 2 layers. Yeah, thank you.
Am I really second? So if I put my RFC 5706 BIS hat on, and excuse maybe a naive question, what is the interoperability risk of these new headers or these new information elements if a collector doesn't understand them? Is there a risk that they would interpret the data completely incorrectly?
Oh, the worst case is it will process it as it is. So if that doesn't recognize the new information elements, then it is already the case. So if you have information elements and report it, and there's no indication, or you didn't have some private definition between the collector and the exporter, then there's already some mistakes. Yeah.
Okay, that's probably worth mentioning in the operational considerations.
Okay, thank you.
Thomas Graf, thanks a lot, Yao. I think what you're describing in this document is really a valid, let's say, problem, and it needs to be addressed. And just to describe to the community here in the room, just because you have several network layers on a networking device, it doesn't mean that the IPFix metering process is exporting all the different layers. So you don't really know when you're receiving at the data collection side, which of those 5 layers are being covered. And now basically with this additional metadata, we understand that out of these 5 layers, this is layer 3 and 4. So when you think about end-to-end capturing this information, this is very valuable. Now, my question to Yao is, you resolved the problem on the device itself. So we know basically from these 5 layers, these 3 layers are being covered. So we know that. But if we look end-to-end at the network, it could be that one device is covering 4 layers, while another device in the forwarding path is only covering 3 layers. So have you thought about how to resolve that problem? So it could be on one device, the top layer is on the other device, is not the top layer.
I have to because the whether a field belongs to the top layer or the second layer is depends on the device, how the device passing the packet. So maybe for the same field in device 1, it just belongs to a top layer. So when it reports at itself, so it will report it as a top layer. So you are right. Maybe for device 2, it belongs to the second layer. So it will report this field as a second layer. So that's as far as I can think of now. So it will be this situation. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
It will report from its own understanding.
Exactly. So it only knows basically on that device which layer it is. So it doesn't know that in context of the network, right? Got it. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Benoit speaking here. So in your proposal, what's happening is that the semantic of one IPFix information element, you mentioned destination IPv6 address, depends on the content of another information element, whether it's an encapsulated layer top or encapsulated layer 2 or whatever. This is something we've been trying to avoid in IPFix.
Okay.
I'm not sure this is clearly mentioned in the spec. And the only exception is the one you've been mentioning, that whenever we have twice the same information element, the ordering counts. So the semantic is important. Now, this has been a problem for IPFix since day one. That's why if you look in the IANA registry, we've been having like MPLS top label stack. We've been having MPLS label stack section 2. We've been having MPLS label stack section 3.
Yes. Yes.
And this is a hack. We know this. So I don't want to say it's not a problem. Maybe there's a track that we want to investigate. It's to use the export of structured data, which is RFC 6313. Why do I mention that? Because there's another draft which is exactly about that will be presented in here. So maybe that would be a clean way to do it. Now I understand it's costly to implement in a metering process and also costly on the collector, but that might be a clean way to do it. Just saying, don't have to solve it here.
Okay. Thank you for suggestion. I'll go look at that RFC to
Dan.
see whether there's a better way to define it. Yeah, thank you.
2 seconds. Dan Voyer, can you also notify the SRv6 Ops working group with your work and more precisely to be very crisp with your objective and use case, please?
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. IP fix over quick.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, Yusung.
Yes, thank you. Can you give me the control?
You have it.
Okay. Yeah, okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Yusung Liu from China Mobile, and today I will introduce the IPFix protocol over Quick on behalf of my co-authors. Firstly, I will talk about why IPFix chooses the Quick. Firstly, comparable to existing transport layer used by the IPFix, HTTP and TCP, we can get the reliability and consistent control. And the second one is that the built-in the TLS encryption for the end-to-end security. And the third one is that multi-streaming with a single connection, eliminating the head-of-line blocking. And the next one is that faster handshake by use the Quick versus the TCP and HTTP. And the next one is that dynamic MTU adaptation to reduce the fragmentation loss. The next one is that the seamless connection migration under the changing IP addresses, for example, in the mobile networks. The last one is that the Quick running in the user space and avoiding the kernel dependencies. From the operational viewpoint, we can have the benefits for the IPFix over Quick. The first one is we achieve the simplified security with the integrated TLS eliminates extra encryption layers. The second one is the efficient transport with the multi-streaming enables the parallel flow record export. The third one is that the resilience in the mobility with the stable sessions across the network changes. The fourth one is the optimize the performance with the adaptive MTU plus the reduced latency. The fifth one is that it's running in the user space implementation and without the kernel updates for the future features extension. So for use the Quick for the IPFix, we can also use the single stream and for the baseline, and the IPFix message can initiate solely by the exporter, require no connector response, and mapped to a single Quick unidirectional stream. but we can also provide the enhanced multiple streams. Enables the concurrent transmission within one quick connection. Like in the fig in this slide, exporting process and create multiple streams from the stream 1 to stream n. Significantly, it can remove the transmission efficiency, and so it can enhance the overall performance of the transmission. And the stream differentiation based on IP flow characteristics, like the 5-tuple information or the transport layer protocol type for the IP flow, or the source or destination IP address ranges, or the template classification. And so we have the multiple stream, so we have the stream management. When the stream count exceeds the quick connection limits, the new quick connection automatically established, and it can maintain the continuous data export capability and ensures the system scalability. And so we have the key advantages of the multi-stream approach. First one is it can eliminate the head of line blocking between different IP flow types. So it can enable the queues differentiation. So it can also provide the inherent data classification and isolation, and can support flexible load distribution across the streams. And the last one is that, and also can backward compatible with the single stream node. So for the operational considerations for the IP fix of a quick, first is the configuration parameters, which will enable the IP fix of a quick as an optional transmission protocol per session. And it should be fallback to the alternative transport protocols if the quick connection fails. So for the multiple stream mode, you should support the feature configuration per stream. The second part is that congestion avoidance. If the transmission buffer is full, the exporting process will drop the data records to prevent the blocking. And the dropped records must be accounting for the enabling accurate loss reporting. The third part is the failover mechanisms. And the quick automatically retries the connection established with the exponential backoff on the failure. So exporters log the alarms if the quick connection timed out for the collecting processor failover. So the exporters may pre-establish a backup quick connection to ensure the continuity. So that's all. We want to seeking the more feedback from the working group and welcome who interested in this proposal and to improve the draft together. Thank you.
I was conferring with Benoit. While I don't think it would solve what Thomas brought up, it might be interesting to note, or I'd be interested to know if the multi-stream approach could solve the encapsulation thing that was just talked about, if you could configure a stream per encapsulation layer. But again, wouldn't necessarily equate to different devices.
Okay.
Per Andersson, I wonder if you have, I've skimmed through the draft and wonder if you have
thought about zero round trip initialization of the connection? Because that has worse security than the one round trip. So in netconf over quick, zero round trip connection initialization is not allowed.
Sorry, my network was not stable.
So the TLDR, zero round trip initialization. Have you thought about allowing that or not allowing that?
Maybe
I'm thinking about that, and then follow your questions in the mailing list. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yusong.
Thank you.
Export of quick information in IP flow or IP fix.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Hello everyone. I'm Tao Qian from Zhongguancun Laboratory, and I'm here to present our joint work on export of source address validation information in IPFix.
Not this one. This is quick export of quick information. I think you're one ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I think this is Leo again.
Yeah. Let me see whether Changwan is here. Oh no, he's not. Changwan is just doing another presentation in best, so I present this for him. Okay. The main concept in this draft is there are there are 7 information elements defined for quick header as shown in the figure. I'm not gonna read it and slide. And here are some the main updates. It has been presented at IETF 122, and 2 comments have been received. And the first one is about the concept of the quick flow, and the second one is there should be some more information about the long and short quick headers and how to use it. And based on the comments, and we made some updates and some additional operational considerations. And update 1. We had some descriptions in the draft that quick packet includes long header and short header packet, and the long header packets are used during quick connection establishment, and the short header packets are used after a quick connection is being established. And quick packets provide varying levels of cryptographic protection according to their type. So, as we know, the entire quick payload must be encrypted. However, only some fields in the quick header are protected, as listed below. So, update 2. So, how to define a quick flow for the long header packet? So, we use 5 tuples: source, connection ID, and destination ID. And there may be other fields, such as header flag, appeared. So they can be used together. And for short header packet, and the 5 tuples together with the destination connection ID are used to present a quick flow. So and there may be frame type or stream ID, and there may be other fields such as frame type or stream ID in the IPFix flow message if they appear. And update 3. The operational considerations are added mainly about the protected field, the protected and unprotected fields in the quick header field. So for the protected packet fields, they must be decrypted before they can be obtained. For the unprotected packet fields, such as header flag, version, test connection ID, source connection ID, they can be obtained in all on-pass devices. But for the protected fields, they can only be obtained in endpoint devices or on-pass devices, which are capable of decrypting quick packets. And welcome and feedbacks on comments, and also would like to request the working group to consider the adoption. That's all. Thank you.
So we're going to do a show of hands real quick since adoption has been asked for and it's been commented on and presented before. Question is, do you think this should be adopted? Yes, you do. No, you don't. Or no opinion, you haven't read it. The show of hands is up.
All right, so there is a lot of yes, and there is something which is important is that there is no no, which means that nobody objects to this.
There's also more no opinion, which likely means people haven't read it. We can do an adoption call and list, and obviously nothing will happen here alone, but it would be good to get more eyes on this. I'm sure that Chung Feng and I will spend some time reading it, and then after this meeting, we can look to call adoption. Med had one comment in chat. I don't know if you want to raise it on list. Okay, so we will consider asking for adoption, but we would like to get more people to review it and possibly comment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we are at export of source address validation. I'm going to end the show of hands tool.
Okay, this is me now.
And John, you're up.
Okay. Do I have the control of the screen?
You do.
Okay, thank you. I'm Cao Qian from Zhongguancun Laboratory, and so this is a new draft, and it's the first time that we share it with the group. And self-address validation, source address validation, short for SAV, is a very crucial mechanism against IP spoofing. But now, currently, it is a black box for operators. Operators cannot tell which specific sub-rule causes the packet to be dropped. So our goal is to use IPFix to bring that clarity to this process. So the approach is to define a new IPFix data model for self-telemetry. The key here is to export not just the fact that a packet was dropped, but also the precise contact. Our solution is built on top of SAF architecture, so it is conceptually aligned with the SAF concept and the validation modes, which is defined in draft general SAF capabilities. and it's also semantic correlated to the Saf-Yang model. So firstly, let's briefly recall the 4 canonical validation modes, which form the foundation of our work. So there are 4 validation modes. The first 2 are interface-based and the other 2 are prefix-based. For both interface and prefix-based validation modes, there are 2 types of sub-rule lists, which is allow list and a block list. So here forms our 4 validation modes. And to report on these modes, along with other contexts of sub-event, we need a set of information elements to capture the whole context. So this leads us to the 4 new IEs that we propose. The first one, sub-role type. It identifies the role that identify the role as an allow list or a block list. So it answers the question, what kind of rule was triggered? The second one, sub-target type. It specifies if the rule is interface-based or prefix-based. It answers the question, was the lookup key an interface or a prefix? So the third one is self-matched content list. It is a list which carries the content of the sub-rules relevant to the decision. It answers which specific rule or rules were evaluated during the sub process. The fourth element is sub-policy action. So it reports the action applied to the spoofed packets. And these IEs work together to provide a detailed context. Sub-role type and sub-target type and policy action describe the what and how. And sub-match content list explains the why. So the key design here is the sub-content list, matched content list. It captures the specific sub-rules that trigger the decision. Here, let's look at the example of a data record. It represents an IPv4 allow-list non-match event. So in this scenario, a spoofed packet arrived on interface 5001. It was checked against an allow list, and it looks up an interface. It looks up based on an interface, but it doesn't match any of the permitted rules. So our telemetry explained this using the sub-matched content list here. The list was encoded in a sub-template list structure. So inside the list, we see 2 sub-records. Each sub-record represents the sub-rule from the allow list that was consulted. So the full information of the sub-rules are recorded here, indicating that the spoofed packets matched none of them. Okay. So the next step, let's look at inside the container to see how the sub-rules are packed inside the list. Each entry of the list is a complete sub-rule, and the rule data is constructed using a sub-template. To describe sub-rules from the 4 validation modes, as we mentioned previously, with both IPv4 and 6 address families, we define 4 dedicated sub-templates for these elements, sub-content, sub-matched content list. The templates cover all the combination of address family and validation modes. So the proposed IPFix IEs here enables operational use cases such as monitoring self-enforcement, troubleshooting misconfigurations, and reporting forensic analysis and compliance. And of course, if if when introducing the when introducing this functionality, there are certain considerations. For exporters, they should probably encode the subtemplate list structure and be able to ensure the semantic consistency. They also have to define the subtemplates before exporting data. So for collectors, they should be capable of facing the subtemplate list structure and understanding the context-dependent semantic of the element within it. And moreover, since the length difference of IPv4 and 6, separate and dedicated subtemplates should be used. So here is a concrete example. We have two sub-events. The first one is IPv4 packet following an allow list, and the second one is an IPv6 packet matching a block list. For the allow list non-match event, our mechanism exports all the permitted rules that was consulted, indicating that the spoofed packet didn't match any one of them. For the block list match event, we report the exact subrule that triggered the decision. So before encoding, before reporting the full data record, the subtemplate used to fill the list should be defined according to the rule that was consulted. So here are examples for subtemplates encoding. The draft contains the full encoding details. And here are the example of template record and the corresponding dataset record. I'm going to omit this part. So here comes to the conclusion. The draft fills an essential operational visibility gap in SAF. It provides a vendor-neutral, implementation-independent approach. So hopefully it helps with operational verification, root cause analysis, and threat intelligence. And we have posted the draft version 01 of the draft to the data tracker shortly before this meeting. This version has been strengthened by the guidance of our co-authors and active discussion within the group, and also specific feedback from INA. And we're now looking forward to future community discussions to help shape the draft. Thank you.
Chongfeng, any chance you can take this to the list? We're running a little behind schedule. Thank you, and thank you, Xiaoqian. We'll try to carry this on the mailing list.
Okay.
CATS metrics exposure using Alto. Luis.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. This is Luis from Telefonica. I will introduce this work that is related with the activity in CATS. In fact, was presented this morning in the session this morning in CATS, and it's about basically expose metrics with an off-path solution like Alto. So a bit of recap on CATS and Alto. CATS is working on basically the main problem that it's trying to solve. It has to steer traffic to the more convenient service instance that could be deployed in edge nodes, basically. So for that purpose, in CATS are being defined metrics that could be useful for taking such a decision. and not only the metrics, but also the methodology for aggregating them and combining them. So considering metrics for compute and metrics for the network. But those metrics, apart from taking the traffic steering decision, could be also useful for taking the decision of deployment of the service instances. So basically, the instantiation of the services. So for the purpose of using those for both for the service deployment and service selection, we are considering we are proposing basically to use an off-path mechanism that could be that is basically the one being defined by Alto protocol. There is some previous work on all these stories. So there is this draft RCR also operational compute metrics that has been presented here several times that basically looks for trying to understand and define what could be the more convenient metrics for that for all the service life cycle, let's say deployment, selection of the instance, assurance, and so on and so far. And also we have the previous draft Contreras Alto Service Edge, but essentially explore the way in which Alto could collect those metrics from the compute domain and basically expose them in an off-path way. So this will somehow combine both approaches and explores the way of using that for the purpose of deployment and service deployment and service selection. So thinking on deployment, what could be the idea behind this? So essentially, we could consider that there are Alto servers in both the network domain and the compute domain. These servers being collecting the metrics information from the respective domains, and then basically an Alto client residing in a service orchestrator that is getting information from both domains, combining them, and basically identifying the more proper or more adequate service instance or edge node, the most appropriate edge node for where to deploy the service instance. So that will be communicated to the cloud controller, and the cloud controller basically taking the decision of the deployment. Thinking on the fact of the service selection, the same story. So having the Alto servers collecting metrics, in one hand, the metrics from the network domain with a particular Alto server, in the other hand, the same metrics, but for the compute domain, and basically aggregating them and taking the traffic steering decision based on that metrics. So I'm here, well, basically, I don't want to enter into details of the functional components of CATS, but basically the idea would be that the component called path selector is the one consuming this or acting as an Alto client for it. So this would be the two, let's say, operational things. But for doing that, we basically need to extend Alto. At least in two parts, probably we could identify from some other augmentations required. But in one hand, to make Alto able to play with the way in which we are defining the way of aggregating the metrics and also the metrics themselves. So basically modifying the cost types in the cost map of Alto. And on the other hand, for characterizing each of the endpoints, so the compute domain and the network domain, also modify or augment the way in which we encode the properties. So basically touching a number of parameters: metric type, metric level, cost mode, cost metric, metric value, endpoint address, and so on and so far. So next steps, as said, we presented this morning in CATS. So we basically want to propose this as an off-path solution. But if so, we need to somehow to find a home for extending Alto protocol. Originally, at the times where Alto Working Group was close to be closed, basically was identified also as the home, maybe potential home for it. So yeah, we would like to understand if that is the case. And apart from that, we will keep working on the workflows, the scenarios, the probably architectural alternatives, and so on and so far. And for sure, if there is any comment or contribution even from this community, is more than welcome. And that's all from my side. Thank you.
Secure hybrid monitor first. Okay. I like the hustle.
Yep. I'm Yutaka from AIST Japan. So I will introduce about recent work, the secure hybrid network monitoring. Next, please. Oh, okay. Thank you. So Oh, great. So recently, the use of hybrid clouds, a hybrid network is common. So it means that connecting multiple instances of networks or multiple cloud services to compose a single system. For example, in financial or governmental use cases, they use on-premise cloud for secure data storage and still using the public clouds for the heavy traffics of web front end or something like that. And important point is that involves interconnection between multiple stakeholders, multiple operators also. And in such configurations, the monitoring of the path property, the connection properties is very important because they may have some possible multiple routes for single destinations. And but in some use cases, only one of these routes are the preferable routes. Next, okay. So like this one, so if we connect the two clouds, for example, and we have the local cloud and a public cloud. In that case, the default routes are both directed to the internet thing. So between these clouds, they have two possible paths, routes for the connection. But because we secure to manage the security of the communication, we definitely want to use only the direct connections for connecting communication between those. So so this kind of monitoring is important because there are so many possible causes to break such assumptions. For example, the behavior of dynamic routing or the misconfiguration of the static routes, or possibly some intrusions to the intermediate nodes. But also, at the same time, the monitoring of such properties very difficult for many reasons like transparency or network complexity and involvement of multiple stakeholders. So we are making a monitoring solution for the many security properties of communication paths, which we gather network status using existing telemetry mechanisms and summarizing this data among multiple networks by making application layer APIs for exchanging such path characteristic and checking for the policy or service level agreement satisfaction by, and also detects and some anomalies and reports for the application level for example, stopping the services or something like that. So our design principle, important point is that we want no or little changes to the existing networks and devices. So we are designing so that we can use some kind of add-on or sidecar implementations to existing telemetry layers. And we just making a very small, simple APIs, possibly HTTP based or something like that for service exchanges. And also important point is cascading query between the operators is important. And this part is the reason I making this designs to the IETF that we need interop for exchanging between operators, and this might be a need for standardization. And also we are considering various network implementation like conventional routing or software-defined networks or VPN or other IP to IP tunnels. So we have submitted 2 internet drafts to the data tracker, and this time we made a presentation in hackathon, and we still have the demonstration in our computer. So if you are here in Montreal and if you are interested, please ask us for presentations. And of course, why we are here is asking for more inputs or comments like that. So it is more than welcome for any comments. Thank you very much.
Comments? Thank you very much, Ruiz-san.
So guidelines for considering operation management in IETF specification, the RFC 5706 bis. We've been working on this for a couple of months now. There is a longer presentation in the ops area, which I will do, I think, Wednesday. And Adrian Farrell did an update for the routing area today at noon, and I've not been able to sync with Adrian so far. Now, why do we do this? Very quickly. 5706, the content is stale. We need to refresh. We targeted several audiences at the same time, protocol designer, the same time ops directorate, and we were mixing at the same time the guidance and the technology. So it was time to update this. On top of that, the ops directorate sometimes comes late in the process where nobody wants to do a document change. Now, what it does is that this new draft introduced a requirement to include an operational consideration section in new RFCs in the IETF stream. I mean, these days, we all do security consideration, right? We don't ask the question. So why not operation management? And by the way, it's about operation management, but we call it operational consideration because distinction doesn't have to be in the section title. This was an aggressive plan by Matt, our AD, to AD sponsor this document. We started in April. We presented in Madrid already. The plan was to just do a last call like kind of now. Now, the point is that it was a lot of work. We've been meeting weekly, updating the draft. We posted 3 different versions since the IETF in Madrid, and we still have a couple of open issues. Alvaro accepted to be the document shepherd, also for his expertise in routing. Now, the plan has changed. The plan has changed a little bit. Sorry, it's a long day. The plan has changed a little bit. It was initially AD sponsor, but looking at the interest and the audience, Matt proposed that we would do it as an OPSAWG document, which somehow makes sense. Now, since Joe and I, we were part of the author list initially for this AD-sponsored document, Alvaro will run the show. And we have right now the adoption call, and there is like a feedback, good feedback there. Couple of changes. We refocus the audience. It's mainly for author writing protocols or protocol extension. We kind of scrapped all the thing about technology that should be in a different document. It doesn't mean that you need to always write an operational consideration. If there are no requirement, this is fine. You could just mention it. New text about good security practice when migrating, OEM impact, SecOps, etc., etc. Review this. But what shall we worry about? It might be perceived, this draft, as yet another thing that I have to do, another process. Now, the checkbox, you are, as always, like I was OPSAWG, you are encouraged to think about the operational aspect and the management aspect. If you think about that and you say, well, it's not for now, or there is nothing, fine. What is painful is that at the end of the process, the IESG or whoever the ops directorates comes and say, you should do this, and nobody does it. It's too late. So it's a guidance to the author. We have the list of open issues there. And we received a lot of good comments already on the mailing list, part of the call for adoption. And I guess that Adrian got a lot of feedback as well. So this is where I'm going to stop and listen to feedback, if any. Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael from the UK NCSC. I want to say thank you to the authors for your work on this. It's a really useful document. And thank you in particular for including text on security operations. I just wanted to flag to the group that I'm writing a bit more detail on security operations in a separate draft. If you'd like to contribute, please do get in touch. Thank you.
Rob.
Just a quick question. So I think this is good work. It's a question for the ADs actually. Have they checked the other ADs that they're happy with us adding this into all documents? Have they got cover for this? Yeah. Yeah.
The answer is yes. From Matt, it was discussed in multiple ISG meetings.
Yeah, I just wanted to check we're not going to start doing a document and then find later on the process it gets blocked. So since we seem to know now, it's fine.
And already last time in Madrid, we presented in the routing area specifically for this. I would say that the routing area is our first customer for this. Hopefully people in ops are convinced. All right. Thank you. For the ops area, we're going to collect feedback that you had in the routing.
Okay, we talked about Velos in Madrid. So I'm back here to kind of consolidate some of those comments that we discussed, have some suggestions. I'm hoping that we can come to some kind of conclusion on how to move forward with the experiment. Remember, this is an experiment at the end of the day. We are trying to understand what it will take to offload a Yang model out of the ID and develop it somewhere else. Okay, so some of the highlights for me is I want to, from a process perspective, make it as light as possible, which means essentially we want to make Yang development easier, faster, whatever you want to call it. And if our effort to try to make this takes a Yang module more than 2 years or to develop, I think in some sense we have failed the experiment. So we should probably continue, go back to what we were doing. So the idea is, if you want to do this, let's do it because it makes it faster. So overall, it's a series of questions I'll ask. I'll propose some solutions, but feel free to comment on it. And then if we need to do, I might ask the chairs if a poll is worth it or not. Okay. As far as the draft is concerned, we'll rename it if necessary. Based on the poll results here, I'll update the draft and send it to the work group for adoption. Okay. So first things first, do we agree that there are two assets that we are talking about? There is the individual, the ID itself, and then there is the, which does not contain the Yang module. And the second asset is the Yang module, which sits, what I'm calling for now, is in a GitHub repo, because that's what we are most used to. And whether that sits in a personal GitHub account when it's an individual ID and then moves to a workgroup GitHub once the ID is adopted is up for debate. Any questions with respect to this?
Hi, this is Kent. Really, it's on the previous slide. You made the comment about it needs to be faster. If it takes 2 years, then it's not worth it. Faster with what? Faster with the first release or faster with maintenance releases thereafter? Like first release, you really want running code. So how do you make that faster? The maintenance releases thereafter, I can understand that being accelerated potentially. So I just want to understand, what is it you're trying to accelerate?
Certainly the maintenance release, but even the initial, I'm wondering, should it really take 2 years or more?
Do we want running code? Do we require running code still?
Running code, I think You mean an implementation of the Yang module? I think even IDR removed that requirement that it needs to have an implementation.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. It's up for rechartering effort.
Jeff, I'll keep this brief. The 2-year thing would be lovely. The obstacle to that is the penalty that is currently there to get this wrong. You get your structure wrong, get anything else wrong, you have all this giant corpus of rules that most IETF isn't following from NetMod saying, you can't do that. Fix that problem and things happen faster.
Okay. Maybe I could rely on Senver and its ability to fix issues as we go along as a way to solve that problem and not worry too much about having it to be fully correct to begin with. Any other disagreement? Okay. So we talked about assets. So my proposal is that we do have an ID, and I know that there was some discussion in 123 about the fact that everyone agreed, yes, developing Yang module outside the draft made sense, but we didn't talk about what happens to that asset that I talked about, the ID itself. What will it contain? My contention is and sorry, I should be a little more specific. I think there was discussion that maybe even the tree diagram for the Yang module should not exist in the ID. That was at least some of the opinion that came out. I don't care where it is maintained. Maybe if it makes sense to keep it along with the Yang module. Maybe for explaining, it makes more sense to put it in the draft. I don't know. I don't have a very strong opinion. I'm suggesting keep the diagram in the ID, even maybe just a high-level diagram.
I think we need to split this in terms of where the latest and greatest lives. If we're going to allow the Yang module to iterate and evolve, and some of that might be small iterations in terms of fixing description statements and things like that, but other ones might be adding what I regard as like minor enhancements or a few leaves here and there. And I'd like to get to a point where we don't have to produce a new RFC just to add a few things. And in that case, you can't put the full tree diagram in the document because that becomes out of date straight away. But you could put in a snippet of the tree diagram and a reference to where the full one will exist, or some tooling to generate the full one automatically if you need it, and point to that, and I think that would work fine.
Okay. All right. Any objection to that idea? So I'll update this point to say that a stable reference in GitHub both to the Yang module and maybe to a more detailed tree diagram should exist in GitHub. Balazs? Balazs, did you have a comment?
So alternative would be to consider the tree diagram in the RFC, but only as informative, not normative. So yes, if we deviate from it, it's not catastrophic. I wonder, so I very much agree with the previous points, but how easy or difficult will it be to describe the functionality if we don't even have the diagram in the RFC? So I would consider an informative tree diagram in the RFC. Thank you.
Okay. That's a good point. I like the idea of keeping the ID simply to be able to describe the module. And usually you do description of the module using the tree diagram in lots of cases. So I feel that there is some argument to have at least some information in the ID. But it's an experiment. Let's try to see what works best for the authors. Okay. So how does the work group stay engaged? In my mind, the fact that you are post a revision usually forces you to say, oh, I should probably read this draft and look at the changes.
Now, in our case, most of the changes will be in the Yang module, so you would have to go to the GitHub to look at the differences in the Yang module. So that does raise the question, should we be updating the ID every time the Yang module changes? And I want to open that up for discussion.
I maybe a related point. I'm going to be really bold. Why do we need an ID at all? Why can't we have GitHub artifacts and CI, continuous integration and continuous deployment, produces an automatic boilerplate? Like you could have a template for security consideration, like put in the nodes that require write access or something. I feel like we're over rotating on the internet draft part, when really what you want is to make sure that the Yang module itself is fully documented, so that I look at this artifact as an implementer or as a consumer, and I don't have to go back and look at some other document. The ID just seems like extra weight, and I know that's what the IETF does, but I'm just going to be bold and say, do we need it at all? If what really should matter is the artifact of the Yang module.
And we discussed that the last time I recall, because there was a proposal to have the ID inside the Yang module. So if you want to disrupt, I would say disrupt completely.
Okay.
Right. So actually, I like the bold move that Joe refers to, but going to Rob's comment about the not having the tree diagram in the ID, I agree with that. I'm sympathetic with that statement. But it seems that if, a little bit outside this conversation, but with Yang packages, if the package locks down to a similar version of the module, all the modules that it's referring to, then a tree diagram could be generated for the package and it'd be statically correct.
Jeff Haas, why would you have an ID? Because that's the thing that IETF as a whole looks for. So the problem is, how do you train everybody to look elsewhere? Well, you have an ID that points over here. But more to the point, having the ability to sort of refer back and forth with each other is certainly a ease of convenience that tools could do. We do have hypertext after all. This is a very 1980s problem if we want to solve it that way. But really, to the second point here is, what do you want out of something that is a Yang module in an ID that you want the IETF as a whole to look at? Most of the time, it's the structure, the keys, and that will, for about 90% of the people, be too much, but enough. The one thing that you have to figure out what to do that's outside of those two easy things is, Yang modules have sometimes too much magic happening in the descriptions for the individual objects. You would want to figure out, how do you flag something important has happened that doesn't change either the structure or the keys?
And sort of following, I think I'm next in queue, but I can't check. I think sort of following up to Jeff's point, I sort of basically agree in the way that I was envisioning this, is that the draft and the RFC would cover the core concepts, like the overall design of the module at a high level, but not go into too many details. And so as long as your module is evolving in minor ways, you can do that entirely outside the RFC process. It needs a consensus check in terms of what the changes are. That needs to be decided. But only if you make major changes to the module and major changes to the structure, then you need to update the RFC. So to Joe's point, I'd love to be able to say you could document this all in Yang. I think you would end up getting the same problem we have today, but just in the other way around. As in, it's not great to put Yang into documents because Yang is code and it's not documents. But I also think it's probably not great to put documentation in code because again, that doesn't work too well. It make the Yang module very, very long in various places if you have to put lots of this other sort of stuff in there. So I still think that having some documentation RFC to go along with the Yang module is good. It's not clear to me your process that when you come along to BIS this Yang module or update it, what's the process there? Is there a new ID tracking that?
It'll be a new ID, in my mind, at least.
And what's that? So I was discussing this with, I'm trying to remember who I was discussing with earlier today, but their suggestion was effectively is that you create an ID that contains the diff, and that's all it contains, and you ship that through the process, and when you get to ISG approval, then it's done. You publish the new version of the Yang module on IANA or something similar. So you don't go through and generate new RFCs. But I still worry about going through the whole of the IETF process for these things. And I'm not convinced whether we need IETF consensus on the Yang modules that are being produced, the differences. Should we get away with working group consensus on those, or area consensus, a lighter process that says this is okay? I don't know.
Okay, I think that's worth considering. So if I could summarize, we do agree that we do need to keep an ID asset, and we need to have the module. ID to describe and have some description for the module, but keep all the code, what we call code, in the GitHub. Is that a fair statement? And sorry, to add to Rob's last point, that a BIS should not be a new draft, it should be just a revision of the Yang module. I think that last point is going to be also critical.
If we can do a bug fix or add a leaf, and that can be done in a matter of like a month rather than like a couple of years, then I think we're doing well. And I'm not too worried about the 2-year timeline in terms of a new Yang module. I think that ship sailed in some senses. And I'm not sure whether IETF Yangs will get a lot quicker, but anything that improves this process and makes it easier to maintain, I think will be helpful.
Well, okay. I was putting 2 years as a marker. I guess the experiment will prove us either right or wrong.
I think for erratas, we should aim for 2 months once it's verified.
Well, it depends.
Coming back to do we need the ID? Currently, in most of the RFCs, I would say the text is 70%. So saying 70% can go into the Yang model or can be thrown away, yeah, we definitely need the ID. Thank you.
All right. Rob, the only point that I would want us to think about is how do and so we never create an RFC out of that ID? Because once you create an RFC, that means you have to visit.
You create an RFC for the first version, and that covers the high-level structure, and it says, and that RFC has pointers to find the latest version here, point here to either find the latest tree here, or this is how you can click on this link or generate the latest tree for you. So as long as Jeff was saying, is if the structure hasn't changed, if your keys haven't changed, if you haven't added things or moved things around, the RFC doesn't change. You just add bits in. But if you add some new functionality, you add something significant into it, then you'll need to BIS the document.
Okay, so the point is there's a stable reference that we point to from the ID. What will that point to?
I think that, and again, this is different what you're proposing. I think that you need to have versions of this where you've got like the latest and greatest, like you're iterating it, and you need to have more stable versions of that. And so once your Yang model has been stable for 6 months and you're happy, you've done some sort of consensus check in some magical way, might be another ID, you then probably ask IANA to keep a reference of that updated version. So you store it somewhere else, and that's your stable reference. And then your what's on GitHub can be your iterating version. So the example that Italo was describing earlier today is they got some types modules, I can't remember, maybe CCamp working group, and they want to sort of publish the version they've got, but at the same time they immediately want to BIS it and start adding more things into it. So he wants to have a split between a stable version and the latest version that's evolving. And it's the same sort of thing that OpenConfig is doing, is every 6 months or once a year or something, they'll then update cut across the current Yang module and say, this is the next release. And then they'll do some changes and iterations. And then a year later, they'll cut along and say, okay, this is now OpenConfig version 4 or 5 or whatever it is. So there's some sort of balance between those two.
Okay.
For HTTP, we just put a Git tag on it or Git label on it and have that as the reference in somewhere in our document.
Okay. Whether it's a tag or a branch, I guess we could think of ways to maybe tag the latest version. Okay.
Approved version, latest agreed version.
Right. So I was thinking Git branch, but oh, sorry. Whoever is next in the queue.
Rashad.
Sorry, when you mentioned the 2 years at the beginning and others asked questions, wasn't clear to me if the 2 years was just for the Yang. Let's say you're doing an initial Yang, not a BIS. Is it the 2 years for the RFC?
For the
to be
RFC.
published? Yeah, so I think so I agree with Rob. If you do a BIS, if you take the example of the BFD change that you, me, and Jeff were involved in, that should be 2 months. But I think the first RFC, what you're doing something like, I don't know, L2VPN, BGP and all that, 2 years might be a bit too aggressive, might be. So I think you have to distinguish between BIS and non-BIS.
Well, okay, I think I'm coming from a position that I think if we are taking that long, we are making ourselves irrelevant.
If it takes more than 2 years, then OpenConfig or someone else will do it instead of us.
Right, if I'm not getting something that I need to deliver sooner, am I going to wait for forever for it to happen?
Yes, but I mean, that's also dependent on, it's not just where you put the model and whether there's links from the ID to the model. It's also linked to how much effort people are putting into it and whether it's the authors or the working group, right? So is the assumption that once it's in Git that you'll get more, it's easier to work on?
It's definitely easier, and part of the argument is that it should make it faster to be able to publish that RFC at that point.
Okay. I mean, as you said, it's an experiment, so
It's
I
an
mean,
experiment.
I hope you're right.
I think the 2 years for a first ID is also dependent on how aggressively the chairs go for compromise or for agreement. Thank you.
Adrian Farrell, you're making me feel exceedingly old and grumpy. And I'm struggling to say this without using bad words. The fact that work takes a long time to produce means nobody cares. Okay, if you care about it, you do it. The fact that you can produce stuff faster if you don't document it is definitely true, and it's a total waste of everybody's time. So we document stuff in RFCs to explain what the Yang model is for. If we can't be bothered to document it, then don't bother writing it. And there was another point where I was also feeling old and grumpy, but I think it's just gone out of my head. But use GitHub to develop stuff, but that's just writing code. Get on with it, write the code, but then suck it back into documentation. Oh, here it is, documentation. Hello. Is it true that there has never been a case where the RFC editor has looked at the text in a Yang model and improved it? For example, the comments that are written in reverse Polish logic. Can we not actually understand that there is a benefit to the editorial process beyond the technical work?
So maybe I may have given the impression that somehow just because the model sits outside the ID, the RFC editor doesn't have access or can't provide comments. They can. There is a stable reference to the document, to the GitHub location. So if there are comments that need to be incorporated, my suggestion would be they could as well be done in GitHub itself. But I could be wrong. Sorry.
So James Cumming. So I agree with a number of points. For initial models, I don't think the time is a concern necessarily. Some of the benefit is that the models have been well thought out over a period of time. And so that's beneficial. We can make use of something like the semantic versioning work to look at things like automatically BISing things. So if you make a change, and it's a, you consider x.y.z. If it's a Z change, then nothing happens, it stays in GitHub, etc. But if you cut a new release of a major model, we could automatically write an ID BIS without anyone actually writing it and automatically submit it. And maybe we look at whether it's the working group or whether it's the AD or someone has to sign it off. So that could speed up that process. I also wonder if, and I don't know the answer, maybe Meg does, if there's any kind of legal requirement for the IETF to hold some particular asset that currently is an RFC and shouldn't be something on GitHub as a Yang module. I don't know if there's any constraints in that respect.
I don't know if there's any restriction as such.
Kent gets the last word, and then we are at time.
I know. This is Kent. I came to make the same comment that James just made, which is if we bind this to semver, and the semver of the module, the diff in GitHub is patch or minor, then no rev of the draft is needed. But if it's major, then revving the draft seems to be needed.
Okay, then I'm a little confused. Sorry, I'm just going to try to conclude this comment. I'm not going to show other slides. Folks seem to be uncomfortable with the 2-year suggestion that I made. First of all, it was a suggestion to see how well we do. If not, then what is the marker we want to set for ourselves? How do we decide that the experiment was successful or not? And I'm going to leave it at that maybe and continue the discussion on the mailing list.
Yes, clearly there is some passion around the topic. Thank you all very much. Any parting comments? No. Have a great evening and enjoy the rest of the IETF.